I will just again my background because today morning, Professor Janki mentioned that it depends on which seat you are sitting, you speak accordingly. I'm fortunate or unfortunate that I don't have any specific affiliation as such because I started 14 years of my life I spent with NERI. Then I was part of Anglo-American consultant, renowned consultant. Subsequently, 7-8 years I spent with Hardcore Construction Company. And now I'm part of investment capital company. In between 4 years, I was member of Environmental Appraisal Committee. And it so happened that my PhD is also on EIA. And it is under Professor Khanna. So all these things put together, I don't think, like I don't have hometown, I don't have home seat from where I can speak, so I can speak impartially slightly. Okay, now coming to the serious part of it. So there was some amusing statements in the morning that because of environmental requirement, projects become financially unviable. I am working with corporate sector for the last 10 years and I didn't find it at all. This is a totally wrong statement. Environmental requirements don't make your project financially unviable. They make better sellable. This is my experience. Now I will give an example of, say, I'm presently working with Shapoorji Pallonji. We are a respected group for the last 150 years and we are respected because we respect laws in this country. We don't challenge them. We abide by them. I will give you 2 examples. Pallonji Seth, who is now 85 years old, a patron of our company, there was discussion internally, we are putting a power plant in Gujarat. And we are telling him, sir, we are doing a lot of CSR work, we have started mobile laboratory, we are full-time doctor and fine. He speaks in Gujarati. He said, only tell me one thing, whether people in that area will be more happy after I put plant there, or they will say, if these people had not come to this area, we would have been more happy. The single most sentence which will tell you whether you are doing right thing or wrong thing. Spirit carries forward. Shapur Seth, who is now my managing director because Cyrus has moved to Tata Power, he told us, all said and done, when you are putting a power plant, you are creating pollution. Please accept it. If you are creating pollution, what is in your hand is, are you going for best available technology? And I can say my plant is technologically best possible so that minimal environmental damage is done. Now, if this is the spirit with which all project proponents are moving, many problems will get solved in the root stage itself. Then it comes to the question of selecting environmental consultant. I joined this organization at later stage, May 2010. Prior to that, consultants were appointed, studies were done, and so forth and so forth. But I told my management, okay, because of the requirements and your habit requirements, all that we have selected consultant, they have done studies, but something more needs to be done. So we need to have more consultants. And we landed up having finally 10 consultants. Initial budget was 30 lakh. The budget went to 1 crore rupees, but I'm putting a plant of 7,000 crore rupees. My 7,000 crore investment is at risk. And if I'm spending 1 crore rupees on environmental consultancy, it is not a big thing. Now, all project proponents, please ask yourselves how much money you are really spending on environmental consultancy compared to other things. I don't think it is a much more amount. I will come to fees part later on. Other thing what happens in this country is some sort of misnomers which we coin. EIA notification, CRZ notification. It gives you impression that it is for EIA or it is for CRZ protection. It is not. The notification for procedure for prior environmental clearance would have been better title because this is just giving you procedure how to get prior environmental clearance for your developmental project. And therefore, notification doesn't talk of regional EIA, carrying capacity, and so on and so forth. It just tells you procedure. When courts go into these cases, be it a High Court, Supreme Court, or NGT, they just go into procedural part of it and they say we don't enter into merits of the case because there are competent authorities for looking into it. Is a procedural notification? Has the procedure been abided by? Same thing is for CRZ, as I told yesterday. CRZ is not for coastal zone management. It is for giving CRZ clearance for developmental activities, where it can be given, where it cannot be given, and what is procedure for that. The same legacy we continue. For example, the Land Acquisition Act. Now there is some long title for that Land Acquisition Act, but at heart it remains just Land Acquisition Act only. Giving fancy name doesn't make any difference to it. Next type of misnomers. Coastal Zone Management Authority. State Environmental Impact Assessment Authority. Moment we say authority, we think they really have some authority. These are just bodies for conducting monthly meeting and appraising projects and giving clearance or refusing clearance. Nothing more than that. These authorities don't have separate offices, separate staff, separate accessibility. Nothing is there. So this authority word is misnomer. The body is created just for procedural requirements. And therefore, when we expect MCZMA or SEIA to do something, it is simply not possible. We talk of carrying capacity studies and regional EIA. My home institution is Niri. I was leader of one of the carrying capacity studies for Tapi Estuary region. Prior to that, 2 carrying capacity studies were done for National Capital Region and Doon Valley, and all these 3 studies were sponsored by Ministry of Environment. We keep on talking of that study should be sponsored by Ministry of Environment. That time they were costing in crores, some 2 crore or 3 crore rupees each study. Ultimately what happened with these studies, when we went to development agencies, he said, who had asked you to do these studies? When we went to NCR Planning Board, he said, who had asked you to do this study? You have done the study, Minister has funded, keep it, fine. And nothing has happened. And same thing is true for regional EIA. Regional EIA, for evolving some sort of guidelines, one can do it. But regional EIAs will not help us in project environmental clearance. Project environmental clearance is a procedural requirement. Regional environmental impact assessment, carrying capacity study are for better understanding of the project. They will remain at that level. So when we talk of EIA for Mumbai and Funded, it is that way environmental impact assessment of development plan for Mumbai, that can be precise thing. Some chapter can be included in development plan, people can be there, and it keeps on happening. Now there is a schedule which is attached to Ministry of Environment's notification. Dr. Hosabetu is here, and he was there for ministry in all these formative years. In fact, in 1991, Ministry of Environment had come for a draft notification for EIA where screening was based on production capacity or size of the industry. It was debated for 2 years, and in 94, when the final notification came, it dropped. 2006 notification, again draft notification was there. Country over CII had conducted a number of workshops for getting opinion of the people. It was debated, and finally it was announced. Today we can look back, and hindsight we can be wiser, and we can blame how it is done. Question which, when we sit in ministers, and I said, when I was in NIRI and when I was part of the appraisal committee, I was closely associated with the Ministry of Environment, and I have high respect for people who are working in Ministry of Environment. When they are seeking for our opinion, do we have objective criteria to say whether 20,000 square meter construction requires environmental clearance, or it should be 30,000, 50,000, 1 lakh? What should be divided line, and what should be basis for it? Besides this 20,000, how this figure came? 2004 notification came that, okay, 1,000 people are staying at one place, it will have impact. 1,000 people will stay in 200 houses. 200 houses, each 100 square meter area, and like this, the calculation goes on, and therefore, you get that 20,000 figure. It was based on certain premise. Subsequently, it was lost and it was distorted. Well, this is the situation at present. If you are keeping track of Ministry of Environment website, recently one circular OM, I get confusion between this nomenclature used, for classification of projects into B1 and B2 category. There was a committee appointed almost 1 year back with chairmanship for Director NIRI to at least come out now with, when we say the notification says the category B projects are to be classified into B1 and B2, what should state government do? Because state governments are not equipped with it. Let that guidance come from center. And if you look at that recent OM, it speaks of only 2 or 3 sectors. It doesn't speak of more than that. That means after how many years? More than 7 years, we are where in 2006 as per B1 and B2 classification. Why it is there? Because it is technically really difficult to say what is there and what is not there, and therefore expert committees are put together that depending on which information what is presented to them, they can take objective decision. Expert committee members are also human beings. They have disciplinary bias. They get carried away. They view angle from the thing. And therefore, something here and there happens. I don't say it happens, but like committee also evolves. And all the consultants who are sitting must have seen the committee in initial 1 or 2 meetings, how they change subsequently 3rd meeting onwards, and after something like 1 year, how the committee also comes to what can be expected and what cannot be expected. And one thing I must accept, So when I was in Niri till 2000, I was innocent person. This committee made me wiser. I'm no more innocent person. I know the games consultants and project proponents play.
Yeah.
Well, my present organization is getting benefit out of it. Anyway,
So,
coming to
Dr.
again serious.
Kulkarni, we can conclude. We have now 10 minutes to also take everybody's opinion on certain
Okay,
things.
just 5 minutes
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
मधु दंडवत नहीं होना चाहिए.
No, I'm answering this question. Okay, I will come to it. No, see, just 2-3 more points. So the basic question is coming about baseline data collection. We keep on broadly referring to guidelines. But suppose a person collects at 5 stations some data and somebody else collects at 10 stations. What is dividing line? Whether 5 is better or 10 is better? As of today, no research or academic institution has come out based on so much data generated over the years that for EIA, these many number of stations are adequate. Even EIA manuals prepared by ministry have different views, and that is creating problem. As far as fees is considered, I just wonder that when I go to pathologists, when I go to doctors, they have rates which are similar. Even if I go to cutting salon, the rates are similar. Then when I go to environmental consultant, why there is so much variation of rate? If those people can unite and have uniform rate, what is problem with environmental consultants? Why they cannot have rate? Well, I'll come to one more thing. We expect many things. We talk of capacity building. Unfortunately, situation in this country is my home organization, NIRI. Our sanction strength in 2000 was 180. Now, at today, it is 120. We expect more work with less number of people. Same thing is true for Ministry of Environment. We talk of capacity building among masses, but nobody talks that whether our key organizations, they are increasing in size. With the environmental problems increasing, my NIRI strength should have been 500 and Ministry of Environment strength should have been at least double of what was there in 2000. This is not happening. So we don't want to do, we just want to do beating around the bushes instead of really solving the problem. That pains me.